Listen closely. This account of personal betrayal is truly unbelievable. My wife was unfaithful with my cousin, and the child I raised, she wasn't mine. This is the ultimate conclusion. I've been reading these online forums for a long time, hoping that other people's experiences would offer some relief. Perhaps I might discover someone in a similar predicament and learn from their journey. But it seems my circumstances are truly unparalleled. So, here is my story. Firstly, let me make this absolutely clear. I don't care if you doubt the authenticity of this narrative. I don't care if you want to criticize me after I share my feelings. The events already took place. I genuinely believed I had moved past it. I thought I had found closure. But after this past weekend, everything resurfaced. The anger I felt back then returned with overwhelming intensity. Even though I'm now settled with my fiancé, that deep resentment towards my former partner just won't fade. I spent years in therapy for anger management because of her actions and the situation she created. I truly thought I was all right. I'm currently 39 years old. I was 18 when I first encountered my ex, Marisol. At that point in my life, I was deeply involved with the Latin Kings gang. I'd been a member since age 13, constantly getting into and out of trouble. Marisol, however, was a church girl. My grandmother would drag me to Sunday Mass, and the moment I saw her, it felt like love at first sight for me. I approached my cousin, who was acquainted with her, and asked if he would introduce us. He refused, not wanting me to interfere with her life, not wanting me to ruin her future. Have you ever met someone who inspired you to become a better version of yourself? Someone who made you want to choose the right path? That was her. Discovering that she attended church almost daily, I began waiting by the steps, striking up conversations. I always walked her to and from services. She made me feel like I had worth. One thing led to another, and soon we were a couple. I felt fantastic. For 18 months, I actively distanced myself from the gang lifestyle. I earned my GED, became a regular church attendee, and started planning for the future. Then, I was unintentionally drawn back in. I was at a store and bumped into someone I had a history of conflict with. They started running their mouth, and I genuinely tried to ignore it. I swear, I did. I just let them talk and began to walk away. But then, I was stabbed in the shoulder blade. I completely lost control. I beat him severely. I was arrested, and suddenly, all the progress I had made to improve my life seemed to vanish. Marisol was furious with me. My grandmother kept bringing up my past errors, and my cousin kept insisting that he knew I would never truly change. My public defender, seeing my efforts to better myself, miraculously secured my release after a month in detention. Despite her anger, Marisol visited me almost every day. A month after I was released, I discovered I was going to be a father. I didn't want my child to have a dad who was either dead or imprisoned. We eloped. I enrolled in a trade school to become a mechanic, working tirelessly for my future family. When Luna was born, it was nearly the worst day of my existence. Marisol suffered severe bleeding, went into shock, and required a double hysterectomy. She remained hospitalized for several months, and Luna became my entire world. I desired the best life for her. I wanted to give her everything. When Marisol was discharged, I vowed that our daughter would have a life far superior to ours. For many years, I upheld that promise. I saved enough money to relocate us to the suburbs, and we became homeowners. Believe it or not, I even became a Girl Scout leader. I ensured Luna attended private school, learned self-defense, and I always strove to be the perfect husband. I hadn't known my own parents and lacked positive male role models, so I didn't truly understand what a healthy relationship looked like. That's not entirely true. TV fathers served as my examples, and I emulated their on-screen marriages. As time passed, I opened my own garage. My cousin became a pastor. My grandmother remained a constant irritation. My bond with my wife felt stronger than ever. I made sure to maintain my physique. But Luna seemed to dislike me from the moment she turned 13. She simply started hating me. She avoided my hugs, rolled her eyes whenever I told her I loved her, and ignored me when I inquired about her day at school. It hurt me deeply, and Marisol noticed. She told me it was just a teenage phase and that I should let it pass. She said Luna would eventually come back around. This went on for 2 years. So, for her quinceañera, I wanted to spare no expense. I got her everything she desired, yet she remained disrespectful. Briefly, my old self almost reappeared to put her in her place. But instead, I went to my cousin, expressing my frustration and doubts about being a good father. He simply told me to let her be and offered a prayer for me. I wanted a photo montage for the father-daughter dance. I gathered many pictures of us together, but then I realized I had no recent ones. She had refused to take any. The last photos of her and me smiling together were from her 13th birthday, and those were on my daughter's broken tablet. I took the tablet to a repair shop, not caring about the expense. I needed that tablet fixed. After a day and $300, the technician repaired it, and I was thrilled. I knew her passcode, but I had never invaded her privacy. I just wanted those pictures. When I opened the tablet and looked in the gallery, there they were, my little girl, smiling and happy beside me. It felt wonderful. Then instant messages appeared. It was my daughter conversing with my wife. There was a lengthy exchange where she expressed not wanting to dance with me, and that did sting. But, as my wife said, she was just being a teenager. Then, she typed something that utterly destroyed me. She texted why she had to perform the father-daughter dance with me since I'm not her father. My heart seemed to stop. I felt dizzy, my mouth went dry, and I needed to sit down. My wife responded that I had raised her, loved her, and that made me her father. But Luna countered by saying my cousin was her father, and she couldn't wait until she turned 18 so she could tell me the truth and live with her real dad. She said she hated me, and thank God I wasn't her father. Marisol began to berate her, saying it was a mistake for my cousin to have told her the truth 2 years earlier. The more they talked, the angrier I became. My wife had deceived me for 15 years. My cousin, in whom I confided my struggles with Luna and my fears of being a poor father, not only slept with my wife, but also allowed me to raise his child. I yearned to hurt them both. I felt a confusing mix of rage, sorrow, and deep grief. I wanted to scream, cry, and cease to exist all at once, if that makes any sense. I plunged into a dark state. So, to prevent myself from doing something foolish, I told Marisol I needed to concentrate on work to pay for the quinceañera. Instead, I drove to Manhattan and visited my former public defender, who was no longer a junior attorney. He now had a prestigious, expensive firm in Midtown East. I was surprised he remembered me, but apparently, I was his very first case as a public defender. We sat down, and I recounted everything to him. I handed him the tablet, and when he activated it, the messages kept appearing. Only this time, Luna was chatting with my cousin, her biological father. He was encouraging her to give me a chance, explaining how I had always been there for her. But Luna told him he had been there too, and how it made sense they shared so much in common. She even called him Poppy multiple times in their conversation, and he replied, calling her his little girl. We explored our options, and he inquired about my desired course of action. I informed him I wanted to pursue total devastation. I wanted to poison the well. He asked me several times if that was truly what I wanted, and I affirmed it. I also specified that all legal documents had to be filed before the quinceañera, which was in 2 weeks. So, he settled down and spent the next 12 hours outlining the necessary steps. I followed his instructions precisely. I covertly listed my business for sale. I contacted the private school and informed them I would not be covering next year's tuition. I closed Luna's college funds and savings accounts, and I prepared to list my house online. No one suspected a thing. I executed his directives perfectly. There was only one point where I deviated from his plan: the day of the quinceañera. That day proceeded flawlessly. The entire family was present. Luna was smiling, enjoying herself. Marisol repeatedly asked if I was all right, and I lied to her. It was incredibly difficult to lie to her. From the moment we met, I had never done so. During those 2 weeks, every time I kissed her, held her, or made love to her, it was agonizing not to scream at her. It was hard not to despise her. She had knowingly allowed me to raise another man's child. She had slept with my cousin, a man I considered my brother, my child's godfather, my best man when we eloped, my confidant. The fury was, to put it mildly, almost impossible to control. When it was time for the father-daughter dance, I summoned her to the center of the stage. She looked annoyed but walked over. I had the music playing, and she smiled. It tore me apart to see her smile at me. For years, I had longed to see that smile again, and now I didn't want it. As we danced, the slideshow played, featuring pictures of the two of us. Towards the end of the song, screenshots of her text messages with her mother and biological father appeared. Needless to say, This did not go over well. Marisol looked as if she had seen a specter. Luna simply kept staring at the large screen, and my cousin just looked at me with terror. Marisol rushed to me, claiming she could explain. I told her I had filed for divorce and she could explain it in court. She grabbed my arm, pleading with me, and I pulled away. I told Luna I had worked tirelessly to give her everything, and now she no longer deserved it. I began to walk away, but not before informing my cousin that every time I saw him, I would strike him. Then, I struck him. The aftermath was brutal. Marisol and Luna were staying at my grandmother's apartment. Her family was appalled and disgusted by her actions. They wanted nothing to do with her. Her father actually offered me an apology. I don't understand why. He never liked me, even after I completely changed my life. That man detested me, but now I was the exemplary husband and father. Just days earlier, I had been the former scumbag. My grandmother had the nerve to recount the story of Abraham, how he returned from battle 3 years later, and his wife had a 1-year-old child whom he raised as his own, and how I should emulate Abraham. So I told her to get out of my house. Marisol came a few days later, crying immediately upon seeing me. She claimed it was an accident, that when I was arrested she was so angry with me, and my cousin was there to comfort her. One thing led to another, and they had sex. It happened only once, and she had been faithful to me ever since. She was even willing to take a lie detector test to prove it. So I asked her how long she had known Luna wasn't mine, and she started crying even more. That look she gave me confirmed she had known from day one. I asked her to leave. She suggested counseling, telling me I was overreacting and that we could make it work. She insisted it was in the past and I needed to move on, that I was Luna's father regardless of what had occurred. I let my temper get the better of me. I must have shouted "get over it" a dozen times at full volume, grabbing her shirt and tossing it out the door. I called her a deceitful person. I told her I never wanted to see her face again and that the life I had built no longer belonged to her, before pushing her out the door. A couple of weeks passed, and she kept inundating my phone. Not once did Luna attempt to contact me. Marisol was shocked to discover I had sold my business, even more so when she learned I was holding an open house. She arrived screaming, telling potential buyers to leave her house, and pleading with me to seek help, claiming I was destroying our marriage, that I had no right to sell our home, the house where we had raised our child. I told her that this house was filled with deceit. It was a place where I had raised another man's child, and when I sold it, I would give her half, then ordered her to leave before I called the police. It was a bluff. All she had to do was play the victim, and I would have been arrested. But she didn't. She complied. Shortly after this, my cousin came to speak with me. I knocked him unconscious, dragged him outside, and closed the door. I refused mediation. Marisol desired reconciliation, but I did not. I wanted a divorce, and my attorney filed for a fast-track process. During the 3 months we spent at the Nassau County Courthouse, I barely spoke to anyone. I had read terrifying accounts of the court system, especially during divorce proceedings, but my experience wasn't like that. I had a very fair female judge. My attorney handled everything. First, Marisol's lawyer attempted to bring up my past gang involvement, as if my history provided a reason for me to be a terrible husband and father. But my attorney quickly shut that down, and the judge admonished her lawyer for trying to shame someone who had turned their life around. My attorney presented all the evidence and offered a lump sum alimony payment contingent on the pending sale of the house and business. Initially, Marisol kept asking me to reconsider, but I ignored her. When she finally realized I wouldn't budge, she agreed. Yet, the true shock occurred regarding child support. My attorney presented all the text messages from Luna's conversation with Marisol, showing that Luna not only knew I wasn't her father, but also couldn't wait to be with her biological father, stating she no longer had to live a lie. Marisol was completely taken by surprise. Then, my attorney filed a motion to have my name removed from Luna's birth certificate, my surname removed, and for me to be absolved of any child support responsibility, since all parties agreed my cousin was her father. Marisol was stunned by this. She screamed at me, begged me not to do this to Luna, insisting I was her father because I had raised her. And as pathetic as it may sound, if Luna hadn't acted that way towards me, if she hadn't said those things, I might have agreed. There were moments I wanted to reach out and try to make things work. But then I would see Luna's ongoing text messages to her friends, her biological father, and her mother. And I would reaffirm my resolve. To this day, I'm unsure what caused more pain, Being lied to by the woman I believed was the love of my life, or having a child whose life I strived to improve, giving her everything only for her to discard me like refuse. The judge remained silent for a considerable period, reviewing page after page of the text messages. In the end, she concurred. I was not financially liable for Luna, and my name could be removed. My attorney also filed a motion for the courts to pursue my cousin for child support, and a motion to sue my cousin in civil court for all the money I had spent raising Luna private schools, dance classes, Girl Scouts, horseback riding lessons, every single expense I had ever incurred for that child. After my attorney explained to the judge that my cousin had committed fraud by knowingly allowing me to raise his daughter without offering any financial aid or support, it was a long shot, but the judge agreed. I didn't bother looking at Marisol when the judge rendered her decision. I didn't bother listening to her as I exited the courthouse. I didn't care when I heard her weeping. She told me she had only cheated once and had been faithful ever since. I simply didn't care anymore. A few weeks later, my ex called me, shocked that I had ceased payments for Luna's private schools and all her activities. I told her to contact her baby daddy before hanging up. Even Luna called me the first time since the whole ordeal. She was crying, saying she had to attend public school, that they were relocating to the old neighborhood, how frightening it was, and how she wanted us to be a family again. I told her to go to her real father, the man she truly desired, and ask him. I yelled at her, telling her that she had known for years, that I had read all the text messages, the back and forth, and that by her own words, she was grateful a hoodlum like me wasn't her father, even though I hadn't been a hoodlum since the day I learned I was going to be a father. I ended the call after that. I considered ending my own life countless times. I thought about ending my cousin's, but I made him pay. He had to pay me $500,000, $500,000 that was entirely mine, and not a single cent belonged to my ex because she had agreed to the lump sum. I didn't care that the money came from the church. I was in agony. I left New York shortly after, moving to Idaho, as far away from New York as possible. I just picked a random state and city and departed. I opened a new shop, bought a house, but for 2 years, I struggled with trust issues. For 2 years, I saw a therapist, attended anger management. I visited rage rooms. It was arduous until I found myself returning to church. And, ironically, that's where I met my fiancée. Jocelyn is wonderful. She had just turned 30 at the time, and we instantly connected. I told her everything that had happened to me. I explained that I would have trust issues, and she understood. A year later, she informed me I was going to be a dad and insisted I get a DNA test, just for my peace of mind. I had forgotten what it felt like to be truly happy. When my son was born, I was overjoyed. I called my grandmother for the first time in years. She cried, and when I told her about my son, she insisted I come to New York so she could meet her great-grandchild, guilt-tripping me by saying she was 90 and wanted to see me one last time. I agreed. We flew to New York, rented a car, and drove to Bushwick. The one thing I despise about the old neighborhood, you only need to encounter one person from your past, and the entire area immediately knows you're back. My grandmother saw my son, met my fiancé, and made a subtle comment in Spanish about her being white. I just nodded along. I was planning to spend the week doing tourist activities. For once, it was Jocelyn's first visit to the Big Apple, and I wanted to make it memorable. Damn it, nothing ever goes as planned. First, my ex shouted my name from downstairs. I looked out the window and was surprised by how much weight she had gained. My grandmother in Spanish told me to speak with her, and Jocelyn agreed. I went downstairs. An awkward silence hung in the air for a minute, and then that familiar rage flooded back. Marisol told me I looked good and remarked that she looked terrible. She told me she missed me, that she hadn't been with another man since the divorce. I ignored her. She even had the audacity to tell me I was a grandfather, and I gave her a look. Apparently, Luna had gotten involved with a decent guy and became pregnant at 18. Her son's father joined the Marines to support them, and her biological father wanted nothing to do with her, simply paying child support and refusing to acknowledge her. He's no longer a pastor and is working at a local store 2 blocks away. Then Marisol told me Luna had named the baby after me, and I couldn't bear to look at her. Marisol wanted me to wait because Luna was on her way, but I simply walked away. I returned to my grandmother's house, and I didn't have to explain anything to Jocelyn. She just knew, and we departed. In the elevator, I told her what had transpired, and she smiled, assuring me everything would be all right. The expression on Marisol's face as we left the building, she was looking at my fiancé as if Jocelyn were the other woman. And Jocelyn, without missing a beat, introduced my son to her. "Well," she said, "I would like you to meet his biological child." That was a painful jab, but she understood my suffering. Marisol kept trying to prevent me from leaving, saying Luna felt remorse for her actions, and Jocelyn wanted me to make amends. But I was so enraged. I jumped into the car, ignoring Marisol's pleas. Jocelyn encouraged me to extend an olive branch, so I gave her my number for Luna to call me, and then we drove off. At a red light, I spotted my cousin by a food stand. I don't know what possessed me. I got out of the car, ran up to him, and beat him severely. Jocelyn was screaming, telling me to stop. When our eyes met, I could see the fear in hers. I spat on him and left. I'm back home now, working, being a father, and a devoted fiancé to a wonderful woman. Yet, since that trip when I'm alone with my thoughts, the anger creeps back. Luna did text me, including a picture of her smiling with her son, and expressed sorrow for her past actions. Yet, I don't know if she's sorry she lost me, or sorry because the man she wanted as her father wasn't who she thought he was. I'm so confused, and I'm afraid to reach out to her. I want to overcome this. I want to move forward. My family was everything to me. My daughter was my world. Even after these years, it still hurts. It still infuriates me. But I know I need to move on, yet it's incredibly difficult. I want to contact Luna, but I'm so scared. People tell me to let her back into my life, but all I can recall are those text messages and the lies, the constant deception. I need help, and my usual methods aren't effective. Thank you for taking the time to read this. I just needed to express myself. As I said, I don't care if you believe this is fabricated. I truly don't give a damn. But your input is appreciated. Update: I'm waiting for the moderators to approve this. It's been a while, and yesterday was Father's Day. Luna tried calling me multiple times. I looked at the phone. I wanted to answer, but I didn't. All that lingered in my mind were those messages, what she said to her mother, to her biological father, to her friends, so I ignored it. Eventually, I listened to her voicemail. She sounded so cheerful. She briefly apologized for her past behavior, but to me, it didn't sound genuine, just passive. Maybe I'm overthinking it. She mentioned her son, her financial situation, and asked me to call her simple requests, and I became enraged. My grandmother and my fiancé are telling me to give her another chance. But when I asked my grandmother if Luna or Marisol had ever inquired about me in the 4 years I was gone, she said Marisol did constantly, but not Luna. So, in my cynical mind, I suspect Luna wants me in her life so her child will be cared for, or perhaps she wants to exploit me. And that made me so angry. Even Marisol kept calling me repeatedly, and I'm already considering changing my number. So I spent most of Father's Day at the gym, hitting the heavy bag. I have an appointment today with an anger management group. Maybe they can offer an objective perspective. If this ever gets published by the moderators, I would appreciate your opinions as well. In the meantime, I'm just figuring things out on my own. Update number 2. I want to express my gratitude to Luigi on Fiji 42 for his suggestion to start by sending an email. I sent a short email to Luna that simply asked, "What do you want?" I didn't anticipate the multi-paragraph reply. She began the email with profuse apologies for her past actions. She said that when she discovered I wasn't her father, she became furious. She confronted her mother, who cried and made her promise not to tell me. Feeling lost, she started talking to my cousin, her biological father, more and more. He told her about my violent past, the things I used to do, things I had kept secret from her. This fueled her anger, and the more time they spent together, the more she distanced herself from me. She admitted she felt bad occasionally, but my cousin would reinforce her negative feelings towards me. On the day of the quinceañera, she said that while we were dancing, she realized how foolish she had been acting. She understood how much I loved her. Then her messages appeared on the screen. In the days that followed, her mother's side of the family advised her to give me space and not to call me, and she listened. She said she watched her family crumble because of her, and she felt powerless to fix it. She told me she understood why I did what I did, yet she still wanted to reach out. Her grandfather kept telling her that I loved her, that I had raised her, and despite what I saw in her messages, I would do the right thing, and she believed him. During the divorce, her mother sank into a deep depression, barely talking or eating. She was merely existing. When she found out my name was removed from her birth certificate, she said she had a panic attack. Her mother told her they would have to move back to Brooklyn, and when she asked about her life at school, her mother replied, "That was the life your father gave you, and he's not your father anymore." So she called me, begging, and I cursed her out then and hung up. She cried for days. She tried to contact my cousin, who largely ignored her. She even went to the church, and he told her to leave, calling her a mistake. Her mother refused to speak to her, essentially locking herself in her room, only emerging for the bathroom or a shower. She pleaded with her grandfather to take her to see me, and when they arrived in Long Island, she learned I had moved. Her grandfather promised to speak with my grandmother to find out where I had gone. For the next 2 years, according to her, it was hell. The entire neighborhood knew what had happened to her and her mother. Her father avoided her at all costs and tried to evade child support. It took her grandfather threatening him to start making payments. Meanwhile, her mother remained silent, locked in her room. The few times they did speak, she called Luna an ungrateful girl and blamed her for losing the love of her life. Her grandfather had to correct her mother, explaining that the infidelity was the reason she lost the love of her life, and her mother retreated back to her room. So Luna rarely stayed home, and that's how she met the father of her child. He worked at the corner store. They were the same age. After a few months of talking, one thing led to another, and she became pregnant. Her grandfather was furious, but when her boyfriend insisted he would marry her, things calmed down. Luna said her pregnancy was a hidden blessing. Her mother started talking to her again and even began leaving her room to be by her side for every checkup. Being a pregnant high school senior was a cliché, but she managed it. A month before the baby's arrival, she graduated, and her boyfriend joined the Marines. He wanted to elope before deploying, but she desired a proper wedding. Her boyfriend had no objection to naming his son after me. Apparently, his own father was absent, and the fact he was a junior was a constant reminder that he shared a name with a man who didn't want him. When she heard I was in town, she got a speeding ticket rushing to my grandmother's apartment. She wanted to see me, to apologize, and wanted me to meet her son. She simply wanted to see me. However, she was late and cried when her mother gave her my number. She wanted to call me immediately, but the entire neighborhood was talking about how I had beaten her father, so she waited. Her mother was saddened to see I had moved on and had a son. Luna was happy to learn she had a little brother, but her mother became more depressed. I felt a pang of sympathy for Marisol after reading the email. I called Marisol and asked if it was true that she had refused to speak to Luna for years and blamed her for our divorce. She confirmed it. At first I yelled at her, but I regained my composure when I heard her crying. I told her to move on, find someone else, but she refused. She said I was her husband and would always be her husband. It hurt me a little. I then had my grandmother go see my cousin so I could speak with him. The moment he heard my voice, he started crying and begged for my forgiveness. I simply asked him why he hadn't stepped up as a father to Luna, why he had poisoned her against me. He confessed it was envy. He had been in love with Marisol, and I had taken her from him. When I was arrested, he consoled her, manipulated her, and their encounter barely lasted a moment. She realized what she was doing and pushed him away, but it was already done. When she discovered she was pregnant, he knew the baby was his. They both understood it was meant to be a secret. Marisol viewed her double hysterectomy as divine retribution for her unfaithfulness and deceit. When Luna turned 13, he was intoxicated, observing my life, and envy was the one sin he couldn't overcome. So he wanted to destroy it, and he succeeded. I told him that when we met again in hell, I would be his eternal tormentor, and I hung up on him. Jocelyn was there for me. She told me everything would be fine. Luna and I communicated through email. I spoke to her on the 4th of July. She spent over an hour crying while we talked. I even spoke to her boyfriend, who asked for my permission to marry her. I found it amusing but honorable. My wedding is next month, and Jocelyn wants me to invite Luna. At the same time, Luna wants me to walk her down the aisle for her wedding in November. My future father-in-law sat me down and told me he couldn't fully grasp my situation, but respected the path I had chosen, because that path had saved his little girl, given him a handsome grandson, and a future son-in-law he would protect fiercely. That made me chuckle. But he told me I needed to release the anger and start forgiving, but never forget. He's right. So we sent Luna an invitation to my wedding, even offering to cover her plane ticket. Her boyfriend, or rather fiancé, said he would work it off at my garage when they arrived. I actually like him. As for walking her down the aisle, I don't know yet. Let's see how my wedding goes first. Thank you again for the advice and the few direct messages. No one was unkind or disrespectful. You all helped me immensely. I'll update if anything new happens. But for now, I need to get things ready for my wedding next month. Final update. A lot has occurred in such a short time frame. Again, I want to thank the vast amount of support I received in direct messages. Of course, there were hateful comments, but all I can say to those individuals is that what you would have done and what I did are two distinct perspectives. Until you experience the same situation or something similar, don't tell me how I should have felt. Leading up to the wedding, I was already on edge. Jocelyn was the happiest I had ever seen her. My in-laws were overwhelmed by the sheer number of guests attending. I swear it felt like the entire town showed up. While all of this was happening, I was an hour and a half away in Boise, waiting for Luna and her family at the airport. In the days before her visit, we talked extensively, mostly her crying and apologizing and me just listening. When she could no longer speak, I conversed with her fiancé, who was much more grounded. When their plane landed, I was terrified not to see her again, but I was also afraid due to my anger. I feared I would lose my temper. The moment she saw me at the terminal, she ran to me, weeping, and for a fleeting second, I saw my daughter when she was 7. It was strange, picturing a child in my mind. She ran, screaming, "Daddy!" The instant she hugged me, she began to sob loudly. It was like a wail that caused many people to stare at us. She just kept repeating sorry over and over, asking me to forgive her, and I simply held her for over 15 minutes. She refused to let go. It took her fiancé and me to convince her. It was as if she believed the moment she released me, I would disappear. After she composed herself, her fiancé properly introduced himself, and then they introduced me to their child. I won't lie, I cried. I wasn't angry, but I wept holding this infant. Luna was also the spitting image of her mother at 19, which made me think about Marisol. During the drive home, we discussed her fiancé's boot camp, how he planned to make a career in the military, and how Luna was pursuing an online accounting degree. It was mostly a catch-up conversation. When we arrived at my house, Jocelyn and her family had prepared an elaborate meal for them. Since we'd been together, Jocelyn had learned to cook Spanish dishes. But the week before Luna's visit, she went a little overboard. Yet, I understood. She wanted to make a good impression. She and Luna immediately connected. Every few minutes, Luna would approach me just for a quick hug and then return to Jocelyn. I was holding my son and my grandson. While Jocelyn introduced Luna to her family, I put the babies to bed and went to the porch for some fresh air. Luna's fiancé was standing in the yard, watching the bisons roaming around. For a moment, I considered giving him the dad talk, but I felt it wasn't my place. Instead, I asked him how he liked the view, and he was completely awestruck. I understand the feeling. Living in the city most of your life, wide open spaces are a marvel to behold. After a minute or two, he looked at me and told me how much remorse Luna felt. I've been with your daughter for 3 years, and not a day passes when she doesn't mention how much she misses you and regrets what she did. Out of everything he said, that single sentence constantly replays in my mind. Her fiancé's name is Roberto. For a man who is only 19 years old, he acts and speaks like someone in his 30 seconds. That tells me he had a difficult life, maturing so quickly. I know that feeling. The next day, I had to go to the shop, and Luna practically jumped into the car with the baby. Even Roberto told her it was okay and to enjoy herself. Luna looked on the verge of hyperventilating, and I told her we'd work a half day, and I'd spend the rest of the day with her. That seemed to calm her, and I slowly began to realize how traumatized Luna was. During the drive, I asked Roberto how severe her condition was. She has severe abandonment issues, he said, constantly afraid that she's going to leave her, despite him telling her he never will. She calls him frequently, is a bit clingy at times, and initially was afraid to be herself, fearing they would break up. He had to constantly reassure her of his love so she could lower her guard a little. This was my doing. I know that. But he doesn't blame me. He told me he completely understood why I did what I did. Let me say that Roberto is a terrible mechanic. He knows nothing about cars. So I had to clean up the shop so he could work off the plane tickets. We closed early, and when we arrived, Luna practically ran towards me. She looked distressed. I told her I'd be right back, and she went to her fiancé. When I entered my house, Jocelyn told me that Luna needed to be reminded that everything was going to be fine, that I wouldn't leave her again. I didn't know what to say, but Jocelyn took my hands and told me that Luna was hurting and needed her father. For the next few days, I spent all my time with Luna, getting reacquainted. I took her to my in-laws' ranch and showed her the bisons, the elks, and took her on a hike. 2 days before the wedding, I apologized to her for leaving. I apologized for how I had acted. I apologized for the decisions I made. She didn't want to hear any of it. She told me there was nothing I should apologize for. She said she knew she was the reason it all fell apart, that she knew it was her fault and I had to stop her. I began to weep. I told her it wasn't her fault. I was angry, I was hurting, and despite what happened, I should be the one to apologize. We both cried and just held each other. Luna seemed slightly better on my wedding day. She was happy. At the last minute, Jocelyn made her a bridesmaid and Roberto a groomsman. The wedding was beautiful. During the reception, I asked the DJ to play the song from Luna's quinceañera, and I asked her to dance with me. She was crying the entire time, clinging to me for dear life as we danced. I haven't felt this happy in a very long time. I let Luna and her fiancé stay in my house, looking after her little brother while I went to Hawaii for my honeymoon. When we returned home, she was happy. She hugged us, and it felt wonderful. Roberto told me he's going to Camp Dwyer in Afghanistan and asked if Luna could stay near us. He would pay for an apartment nearby until he could buy a house. Of course, I agreed. They returned to the city 2 days ago. As I said, it's been quite eventful. Luna's wedding is in November, and Roberto is deploying in December. Roberto sent me what amounts to a year's rent for a townhouse community 3 miles from my house. However, Jocelyn suggested we put a modular home on our property for Luna and let her save her money to buy a house when Roberto comes back. Marisol has been constantly calling my phone, and based on her messages, she's not pleased that Luna is moving. Right now, my focus is on my family and repairing my relationship with my daughter. Okay, if you're still with me, we have a few reader comments to share. Remote Phrase states, I have immense respect for how you transformed your life. It's truly remarkable. As a 1-year-old woman with a difficult childhood and anger issues myself, I've been in therapy for 16 years to find inner peace and accept my anger as a part of me that will always be there, but I am accountable for it. I've learned to manage and redirect it, like simply asking loved ones for space on a bad day when I feel easily triggered. I avoid people I don't know. The consequences of an outburst aren't worth it. My life has turned out well. My husband rescued the troubled girl I was, enduring much due to my insecurities, but he remained by my side. We just celebrated 32 years together and have 2 sons and a grandson. I've discovered unconditional love, something I never had before, and I know for certain I wouldn't be alive today without my family. Anger was my survival mechanism for my pain and hatred. I needed it then. I don't need it now, but taming my inner monster will always be a challenge. Take care of yourself and your family. I just wanted to let you know you're not alone in battling the darker aspects of your personality. Hugs. Edit. I also have strong faith in God nowadays. It gives me strength during my struggles with guilt and depression over past actions. The guilt will always persist. I'm striving daily to be a good person, to repay my debts, so to speak. Prayer helps. Believing in a higher power also assists me greatly. Next comment comes from Gray710. Brother, honestly, I must say I'm sorry for all you endured. No one should suffer that much. But at least you found peace with your new wife and son and are gradually mending your relationship with Luna. The fact that your grandmother deliberately misquoted something from the Bible to compel you to accept this completely unjust situation made me very upset. I'm glad that despite everything you went through, you ended up in a good place in life. Best wishes and greetings from Argentina. And finally, a comment from NVOTG. This story is incredibly genuine. I completely respect the choices you made and how you stood firm. Mistakes happen, but it's often how we respond and heal old wounds that truly shapes a better future. I wish the best for you and your daughter and hope to see your bond strengthen, though there will be numerous obstacles. Family isn't defined by blood, it's defined by who we choose. Also, please tell your future son-in-law to be cautious and stay vigilant. I have fellow soldiers who might be heading that way. It is better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war.